All right, Javosai, good morning, in Chodesh. Let us begin. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Elul, Haba Alinu Latova, Baruch Meir and Rena Dubin, in honor of our children and all of these suburban sons and daughters beginning their year of study in Eretz Yisroel. Beautiful. May their Torah study and mitzvos in the Holy Land merit the release of our precious hostages, the success of our soldiers, and return to their families in the arrival of Moshiach, tzidkeuni, bimheira, b'yameinu. Amen. Wow, what a beautiful dedication. What a wonderful way to start off the month. Our week of learning sponsor, Leah Sol, wishing a Mazel Tov to Avraham Zeesy Silber on the birth of Shaya Silber, and a Mazel Tov to Robyn Schaffer Chet Wyman on their recent marriage. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Our day of learning sponsor, Stanley Cynthia Ringo, in memory of Cynthia's mother, Miriam Bas Yaacov, Zichron Levracho's yahrzeit is today on Rosh Chodesh Elul. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah, the family ein nechama, all of our hostages will be returned to their families, and our soldiers will be successful. B'chol ma'aseh yadehem. But with that, let us be. We have a beautiful, beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Ayin Aleph 71, and we are starting at the Mishnah. So a lot to accomplish today, a lot to do today, not a lot of time to do it. So the Mishnah says as follows. So we'll say, so continuing again in our topic of what's included in a sale, what's not included in a sale. So lo es habar, velo es hagat, velo es hashovach. So actually we've seen this Mishnah referenced before. So we'll say, so this is talking about the sale of a field. Sale of a field. So when a person goes in and sells a field, what's not included in the sale of the field? So I'm not including a bar. Remember again, bar means a ditch. Gat is a wine press. Shovach is a dovecote. So these items are considered to be chashiv unto themselves, and therefore halacha l'maisa are not included in the sale of the field. Bein charivin, bein yeshuvin. Whether ultimately, again, charivin means they're destroyed, in other words, non-functional, or whether they are functional. So good. So we'll say, so that's item number one. So halacha, and again, we've actually seen this quoted a number of different times. So halacha l'maisa, again, take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Rashbam is actually across in the Gemara from the first wide line. Lo es habar shebesada af pi sh'amar lo kol ma shebesocha. So this is interesting. In other words, I sell a field to Ruvain. I say, Ruvain, I'm selling you the field and everything in the field. Halacha l'maisa, these items are not included because they are considered to possess a separate and distinct identity. Okay, now we'll say, so now I know, so I'm selling Ruvain the field. So halacha l'maisa, the field does not include the bar, the gat, the shovach. Fine. So we'll say, which means what? What does it mean it's not included? What does that mean? It means it's mine. In other words, so I'm selling Ruvain the field, but I retain ownership to the pit, to the dovecote, and to the wine press. So we'll say, so now we come back. We thought we were finished. But we come back to the Machlokes Rabbi Aviva and the Chachamim. So now I own it. The shaila is, how do I access it? The tzarech likach lo derech divrei Rabbi Akiva. And ultimately, again, remember again what Rabbi Akiva holds, mocher ba'ayin yafa mocher, that when you sell with an incredible sense of generosity, which means you sell everything. So when I sold Ruvain in the field, I sold him everything, including my right of ways. So therefore, again, if I want to access any of those areas, the bar, the gat, the shovach, so halacha l'maisa, again, I have to purchase back a right of way. The Chum say, the Chum on the other hand say, mocher ba'ayin ro'a mocher, which you can both say, it sounds so bad. I'm always bothered by like the phraseology, is right? Literally, again, it sounds that a seller sells with a bad eye. It doesn't mean a seller sells with a bad eye. It's not a bad eye. It means the seller sells exactly what it is that he has to sell and nothing more. And nothing more. Therefore, halacha l'maisa, the Chachamim presuppose that when I sell my field, because I know that I am retaining my bar, my gat, my shovach, therefore what? By definition, I'm retaining for myself my right of way as well. They will say that, again, we're going to see this in just a little bit. We'll talk about this idea. Well, actually, let's finish the Mishnah. Rabbi Akiva agrees. So I'll say Rabbi Akiva holds that I remember, let's say I say, we've seen all this before. I said, Ruvain, I'm selling you my field with the exception of, we don't have to go through the whole list, with the exception of the bar. I'm selling you my field with the exception of the bar. Now, let's remember again, we've spoken about this idea. That statement by itself is extraneous, right? You don't need to say that. Why? Because in every cell of a field, a bar is excluded. Now, if we go with the idea that everything that a person says transactionally is meaningful, so remember again, the halacha says we reinterpret the statement to mean something meaningful. So, for example, I say, Reuven, I'm selling you my field with the exception of my bar. Well, that statement, again, is unnecessary. The bar is already excluded. So rather, what do we understand when it says, with the exception of my bar? What does that mean? It means I'm retaining a right of way. That even Rabbi Aviva says, if I explicitly exclude the bar, the gat, the shovach from the sale, even though I do not need to do so, if I explicitly do so, what that means is I'm retaining right of way for myself. Incredible. Machran li'achar. Suppose say now this is the reverse case. See, in the first case, I was selling the field, and now I was excluded from the sale of the field. In case number 2 is I'm selling the bar, the gat, and the shovach. So I'm selling these items. I'm selling Reuven my bar. So now I sell Reuven my bar. So Machran li'achar. Rabbi Kiva Omer Eino Tzarech Likach Lo Derech. Rabbi Kiva says Reuven doesn't have to buy the right of way separately. In other words, included in the sale of the bar is the right of way, which makes sense. Once again, this is Rabbi Akiva, mocher ba'ayin yafe mocher, right? That a seller ultimately goes ahead and sells with a good eye in a generous way. So therefore, again, I sell Reuven the pit. Included in the sale of the pit is the sale of the right of way. The Chum say, the Chum say no. When Reuven purchases the pit, there's the pit purchase, but you have to go ahead and purchase right of way separately. Again, that's mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher. This is everything we've seen before. But the Gemara says, okay, so now we have this essential machlokes over here, Rabbi Akiva and Chachamim. When you sell something, Rabbi Akiva says, seller sells with complete generosity. So therefore, again, I will say, just to show you how that cuts both ways, if I'm selling Reuven my field, so remember again, the bar is excluded, which means because I sold with such generosity, I did not retain a right of way for myself, and therefore, if I subsequently want that, I have to purchase that separately from Reuven. Chachamim say no, not at all. Mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher. You sell only what you have to sell. I know that I'm retaining the bar. Because I retain the bar, I also retain the right of way. Flip case, right? Flip case. But before we get to flip case, but even Rabbi Akiva agrees that what? Even Rabbi Akiva agrees that halacha l'maisa, if I go ahead and I say to Reuven, I'm selling you my field, but I'm excluding the bar. That statement is unnecessary. That statement is interpreted to mean when I say I'm excluding the bar is I'm retaining right of way for myself. Flip case, I sell Reuven my bar. So what happens when I sell Reuven my bar? So according to Rabbi Akiva, the bar comes with a right of way. Mocher ba'ayin yafe mocher. According to the Chachamim, the bar does not come with a right of way. Reuven has to purchase that separately. Mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher. Okay, now the Mishnah qualifies this. When is all of this said? B'mocher. Everything we've been speaking about until now is dealing with a sale. Aval, b'nosein matana, nosein eskula. This is very interesting. What if you give a gift? What if you're giving a gift? So everyone agrees that when you give a gift, everything is included in the gift. Now, what does that mean? In other words, essentially, everybody agrees that when you give a gift, that is done ba'ayin yafa. That's done with generosity. And it makes a lot of sense. Take a look at the Rashbam's second wide line. Avabenosim matanosim eskula. Kol hani da amru lo machar afilu hani de'ina b'chla masha b'sochol kugon charov hamurkav ustana shikma ubar v'gat v'shovach v'hachi muchal kabi hekdish. So Rabbi says, so this is fascinating. This is actually fascinating. The way the Rashbam understands it says as follows. We've been learning, right? Our last couple of blot have all been about when you sell something, what's not included in the sale. What's that? And generally, again, what's the rule for what's not included in the sale? What's the rule? Essentially, if it's chashiv, if it has its own independent chashivos, it's not included in the sale. So the Gemara says all of this is by a sale. When it comes to a gift, the assumption is when you gift someone something, what is included in that gift? Everything. So therefore, if I gift Reuven a field, what's included in the field? The grafted carob, the prune sycamore, right? The bar, the gat, the shovach, all of these things all the excluded items are included in a gift. Now the Rashbam says, why is it? V'taima, mishum denosin ba'ayin yafenosin, yoser midai, v'afilu mai delo havi bichlal sada, hol v'kavua b'soch asadu, miyu im yishmos, so the idea over here is as follows. Remember, even according to the Chum who say, mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher. Why do they hold that way? Right? Think about this. Why would you hold mocher? Right? We're so generous. Why would you say mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher? Why? Because also remember again, let's get into the Talmudic psychology of a sale. What is the Talmudic psychology of a sale? Why do people sell their stuff? Why do they sell their stuff? Because they need money. Right? You're going to both say it's not like the way we think about sales. Like, I don't need it anymore, so I sell it. You only sold your property if you needed the cash. So therefore, again, the assumption over here is therefore mocher ba'ayin ra'a means that if I'm selling, I'm going to sell exactly what I need because I'm strapped for the cash. But this is not like an all-in generous sale. That's the logic for mocher ba'ayin ra'a. When it comes to a gift, however, again, nothing's compelling me to give a gift. If I'm giving a gift, why am I doing that? It's out of the goodness of my heart. So by definition, there is an inherent generosity that is built into gift giving. So because of that, the Mishnah assumes that even the Chachamim who hold mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher would agree that when you give a gift, it is always ba'ayin yafa. It's always with a good eye, always with a sense of generosity, and therefore, amazingly enough, all of the stuff that's included, that's only excluded from a sale, is included in the gift. Now, by the way, the Rashbam does point out over here something interesting. The Rashbam says, of course, there are things that are excluded. Let's say I gift Reuven my field, and I realized that I forgot my wallet on the field. Right? So obviously, my wallet is not included in the gift. Right? In other words, I left money in the field. That's not included in the gift. But Lamaisa, any of the other things that are part of the field, attached to the field, halach Lamaisa, are included. Okay, incredible. Let's finish up the Mishnah. The Mishnah goes right there. Ha'achin shechalku, zachu b'sada, zachu b'kula. Similarly, again, when brothers divide up an estate. So let's say Yaacov died. He left behind 3 sons, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi divide up the estate. When they divide up the estate, they all, whatever portion they get everything on that portion. In other words, let's say Reuven's portion includes a grafted carob, or a bar, a gat, a shovach. Whatever portion he gets from an inheritance perspective includes everything that's there. Hamachzik b'nichse ager, v'hechsek basad, v'hechsek b'kula. Similarly, again, both say nichse ager. We have evidence for a little while. Remember again, you have a convert who dies without any relatives. What's the status of his property when he dies? What's the status? Hefker. Right? So because of that, when somebody comes along and is machzik and takes possession of it, so what's the halacha? The halacha is you acquire everything that's on there. In other words, what the Mishnah is just highlighting is, this whole time we've been speaking about when you acquire a piece of property, what's not included in that. Here the Gemara is just pointing out cases of matana, nichse hager, yerusha, that when you get this particular piece of property, you get everything that's included on it. Hamakdish es hasadeh, hikdish es kula. Similarly, again, if you're makdish, if you consecrate a field, you consecrate everything that is on that field, which means, let's say again, I have a field and I makdish it, right? And on my field is a bar, a gat, a shovach, a charov, a shikmar, a carriage, all of these things. If you're makdish the field, ultimately, again, you're makdish everything. Now, by the way, the Rashbam says, because the truth is, hektish is the same thing as matana. The same way that everyone agrees that a matana is ba'ayin yafa, so too hektish is going to be ba'ayin yafa as well. Rabbi Shimon says, "Amaktish esasonda lo hiktish ella esacharov hamurkav bes sedana shikma." So Rabbi Shimon says something interesting. Rabbi Shimon says, no, in general, when you're makdish a field, Rabbi Shimon happens to hold, interestingly enough, Rabbi Shimon really seems to hold that a hekdish is more like a sale, more like a mecher than a matana. As such, because it's a mecher, generally all the exceptions would apply to hektish as well. So, for example, say when I sell a field, what's not included? The bar, the gat, the shova, these items are not included. So Rabbi Shimon would say when you're makdish field, these items are also excluded, with the exception of the carob tree and the sycamore tree. Those are always included in the hektish of the field. We'll see why that is. All right, I will say that Mishnah was packed. So now let's see the Gemara. Ma'ishna mecher u'ma'ishna matana. So the Gemara says, in general, I don't understand why is it that there is this fundamental distinction between mecher and matana. In other words, that I will say, it seems that everyone agrees that when it comes to matana, that is going to be ba'ayin yafa. right? Everyone agrees. And yet by mecher, there is this feeling, at least according to the Chachamim, that it is ba'ayin ra. So what is the pshat? Why the fundamental distinction? So the Gemara says, Perish Yehuda ben Kusa, Lifnei Rebbe, Ze Pirish v'Ze lo Pirish. It's very simple. So we'll say, Yehuda ben Kusa wants to suggest that the distinction must be as follows. The case of mecher must be a case of where the seller indicated what he is including and what he's not including, versus the case of matana, where the giver did not specify, therefore everything is included. The Gemara says, 1 second, zelo pirish v'zelo pirishu. That's not true. The whole point of all these cases is where the seller/giver never articulated anything. In other words, the seller just said, I'm selling you a field. The giver of the gift said, I'm giving you a field. There was never any type of additional stipulation involved. Ella, ze hayalo lefarish, v'ze lo hayalo lefarish. Rather, the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says like this. Here's what happens. And there are certain default assumptions. The default assumption by a gift is that when you're giving a gift, you obviously, what's impelling you to give a gift? What's impelling you to give a gift? Yeah. Generosity of your heart, right? You want to give a gift, fine. So by definition, the default over there is a generous disposition. That's the assumption. And therefore, the assumption of the gift is everything is included unless you choose to explicitly exclude. By a sale, once again, because the motivation for a sale is that I'm strapped for cash, there's an ones. So therefore, again, I'm going to do whatever I have to do for the sale in order to satisfy the basic criteria of the sale, but nothing more. And therefore, again, by a sale, the assumption is I'm withholding unless, of course, I choose to include everything. So it's just different default settings. This is what we said before. By a gift, the assumption is generosity. Generosity is all-inclusive. By a sale, the assumption is there's an element of duress. That's what's causing me to sell my property. Therefore, I'll sell whatever I have to sell, but by definition, not including anything more. Of course, again, remember, this is in the mindset of the Chachamim of mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher. Rabbi Akiva obviously holds that almost like the same type of generosity that applies to a gift applies to a sale as well. Okay, incredible. So Marga tells a story. Hahu da'amar luhu, havu le leplanya besa de maxik mea gulfi. So listen to this. Case of a gift, right? There was a guy, we'll call him Ruvain, right? Ruvain says, give to Shimon a home that is able to contain 100 barrels. So he's gifting him a home. And the way he's describing the gift, the item that he wants to gift, is that it's able to maintain 100 barrels. Okay. So what happened? We looked at Ruvain's property and we saw the only house that he had was capable of holding 120 barrels. So in other words, so the house was larger than Ruvain kind of outlined it. So I'll say, what's the shaila? Shaila is, what do we do? So what do we do? Amar Zutra, Meya Amarle, Meya Vesel Amarle. So our Zutra says, look, there's no gift to be given over here, right? Why is there no gift to be given? Because halacha l'maisa, Ruvain said, give Shimon a gift, right? A home that could contain 100 barrels. This home contains 120 barrels. That's not what Ruvain intended to give. That's Mar Zutra. Rav Ashi Amar, Milo Tnam Medar Muram B'mocher. Ava b'nosein matana nosein eskulon. So Rav Ashi says, but one second, look at the Mishnah. What did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said the only time we say that ayin ra is where? By a sale. But by a gift, the assumption is ayin yafeh. So the Gemara says, therefore, Alma mandi yoiv matana ba'ayin yafeh v'yohiv. When one gives a gift ultimately again ba'ayin yafeh. Ba'ayin yafeh. Hachenami man di yohiv matana ba'ayin yafeh yohiv. So too ultimately again, one who gives a gift ba'ayin yafeh. So therefore again, when Ruvain says, I want to give a home that ultimately again is able to contain 100 barrels to Shimon, and we look at Ruvain's properties and all he has is a home that could contain 120 barrels, we assume that's the home he meant to gift. That's what he meant to gift, because mocher ba'ayin, no sein matana ba'ayin yafeh. I will say, there's a beautiful Musar Haskell in this as well. There's a number of pieces that are very relevant to today. And I will say, but amazingly enough, that in today being Rosh Chodesh Elul, the beginning of our avoda of tshuva, right? That's what Rosh Chodesh Elul is, the beginning of our journey of returning to the Ribono Shel Olam and reconciliation and rejuvenation of this most beautiful and incredible relationship. I will say, if you think about it, the greatest gift that the Ribono Shalom gave us, the greatest gift, we often think the greatest gift is life. Life is not the greatest gift. Life, don't get me wrong, life is pretty good, right? Life is a fantastic gift. The greatest gift that the Ribono Shalom gives us is tshuva. Tshuva doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. The ability to go ahead and change the past. Right, the ability, like the Gemara says, that without getting into all the technicalities, that if you do tshuva mi'ira, tshuva motivated out of a sense of fear, I want to avoid punishment, that tshuva has the ability to change my averos, my intentional averos, into accidental averos. And tshuva me'ava, tshuva motivated out of a love, a beautiful, holy tshuva, has the ability to transform my averos into mitzvos. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. The ability to wipe my slate clean, right? The ability just to go ahead and literally blot out the past and be able to make a beautiful new future. The ability to start again. And even though I've started again so many times in the past and yet have never really maximized those new starts, doesn't prevent me from being granted another opportunity. It doesn't make any sense. Tshuva is the greatest gift in the world. And what do Chazal tell us? When someone gives a gift, they always give it ba'ayin yafa, which means the gift is always given with the most incredible amount of generosity. So Rabbi say, today, Rosh Chodesh Elul, we are given the gift of tshuva. We're given the gift of tshuva. We're always given the gift of tshuva. It's not limited to 1 month out of the year. But the truth is, we feel the gift most acutely during this month or the next 2 months. So also just Baruch Hu gives us this gift. The Ribono Shalom gives it ba'ayin yafa. Sometimes we think to ourselves, I can't do tshuva. I can't change. I am what I am. I am how I am. The ability of tshuva works beautifully for other people, maybe doesn't work for me. No sein matana ba'ayin yafa, no sein. Just know that when the Ribono Shalom gives us the power of tshuva, he gives it ba'ayin yafa. And ba'ayin yafa means as much of it as you want, to utilize it however we want. That power of change is here in the world. The power of return is here in the world. The power of reconciliation is here in the world. And the Ribono Shel Olam is giving it to us in ridiculous measure. He's giving us the matana ba'ayin yafa. The only thing we have to do is find the courage to accept it, to embrace it, and to utilize it. Let's go weiter. Says the Gemara, Hamakdish hasasada hekdish. So next, remember again, if you're makdish hasada, so also the next thing we had in the Mishnah is if a person goes ahead and consecrates a field. Consecrates a field. So then what did the Mishnah say? So the Tanakama said, you're makdish everything. Because the Tanakama said that hekdish essentially is like matana. So same way that matana is ba'ayin yafa, so to hekdish is ba'ayin yafa. Reb Shimon disagreed. Reb Shimon said when you're makdish a field, generally the only additional things that are included are halacha l'maisa. The only additional things that are included are the sycamore tree and the carob. That's it. So the Gemara says as follows. So Amrav Huna, Afagav Dam Rabbanan Akoni Shnei Ilanos B'Soch Salesh Chavero Hare Ze Lokana Karka. See, even though the Rabbanan said that ultimately, again, if one goes ahead and acquires 2 trees in a field, you do not acquire land with that. And so we've seen this concept before. Generally, if you let's say I buy 2 trees from Ruvain, right? So what I own are the trees. What I don't own is the land underneath it. Conversely, if I buy 3 trees, 3 trees comes with land. So as much as we say in general, macha karka v'shir, if I acquire 2 trees in my friend's field, I do not acquire corresponding land with that. Machar karka v'shir shnei ilanos lefanav yesh lo karka. So I said this is interesting. Let's say I sold a field to Ruvain. And I retained 2 trees for myself. So what's the halacha? I retain land along with those trees. Not only do I retain the trees, I retain the land as well. And even according to Rabbi Akiva, right? Because Rabbi Akiva would normally say that if I sold land to Reuven and I retained trees for myself, Rabbi Akiva holds mocher ba'ayin yafa mocher. And therefore, bepashtos, I should not retain any land for myself. Even Rabbi Akiva agrees in this case. Why? Rabbi Akiva holds that's true, let's say, with a bar and a dus, right? With a pit and a water cistern. Why? Because those objects don't have a negative effect on the ground. Avali lanos, the kamachach shi'ara, but trees, which do take nutrients from the ground, on the base, in isa de lo shir, lema le akar ilanach mishakal v'zil. Okay, so I will say, this is great. So watch what's just happened over here. So a bunch of halachas that at first glance seem unrelated, but then will be related. Watch this. So if I go ahead and I purchase 2 trees, I purchase 2 trees from Reuven. Reuven has a field. I purchase 2 trees. Generally, when you purchase 2 trees, what do you get? What do you get? Trees. What don't you get? Land. Right? If you purchase 3 trees, you get trees plus land. But yet, what's interestingly enough, Rav Huna is holding, but what if I sell, right? If I go ahead and I sell Reuven my field, but as I sell in my field, I retain 2 trees for myself. So Rav Huna posits, everyone agrees in that scenario that I retain land for myself, right? Even Rabbi Akiva, who normally says, Mocher ba'ayin yafa mocher, which would normally mean that, what according to Rabbi Akiva, when I sell Reuven land and I retain trees for myself, so Mocher ba'ayin yafa would mean what? That I shouldn't retain land for myself, that I should sell everything to Reuven. Even Rabbi Akiva agrees that I retain land. Why? Because they're both say, here's the problem. If I don't retain land, then when Reuven owns the field, Reuven would have the ability to say, uproot your trees. Why? Because your trees are adversely impacting my land. See, in order for me to go ahead and have my trees, I also have to have the land that they're drawing nourishment from. Because even Rabbi Akiva holds mocher ba'ayin yafa mocher, holds that about things that don't have a negative impact on the land. The bar, the gat, the shovach, the dus, those type of things. But the problem is, if I sell my lands to Reuven and retain 2 trees for myself, if I don't retain that land underneath the trees, then Reuven is going to come along, and Reuven has every right to say, uproot your trees. They're having an adverse impact upon my land. So in order for me to hold on to my trees, I have to retain the land underneath it as well, even according to Rabbi Akiva. Okay, the Gemara says, fine. So the Gemara says, Tnan. Rabbi Shimon Omer, so let's contrast this with the Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? Tnan. Rabbi Shimon Omer, hamakdish es hasoda lo hekdish elo charov hamurkov ustana shikma. Rabbi Shimon holds that if a person goes ahead and is makdish, his Sada, his field, lo hikdish alachar hamurkav is not a shigma. So remember again, Rabbi Shimon holds that when you makdish a field, in general, everything is excluded from the hekdish, except for the carob and the sycamore tree. V'tani Allah, Amar Rabbi Shimon matam. What's the reason? Hoil v'yonkin mistei hekdish. Ultimately, again, because since these items derive nourishment from a field of hekdish, therefore, halach l'maisa, again, they're considered to be like a hekdish as well. So in other words, listen to Rabbi Shimon's logic. So Rabbi Shimon's logic is like this. I'm makdish my field. So in general, what we'll say is, what's included in that? Well, generally, Rabbi Shimon say, we'll treat hekdish like a sale. So therefore, whatever is included in a sale is included in hekdish, and therefore, by extension, whatever is excluded from a sale is excluded from hekdish. With the exception of the sycamore tree and the carob. Why? Because halacha l'maisa, they are actively deriving nutrients from the field itself. Right? They're yonkin mistei hekdish, and Abba says if something is yonik, if something ultimately again derives its nutrients from hekdish, then what's its status? What's its status? It's hekdish. So I'll just mention how beautiful is that, right? You could have something that itself is not hekdish, but if it derives its nourishment from something kodesh, it itself becomes kodesh. In other words, if you think about just this case, I'm makdish a field. Technically speaking, the grafted carob tree and the sycamore tree are not really considered part of the field, as we established yesterday and the day before. Why? Because these items are so chashuv that they're really reckoned separately. Yet, Rabbi Shimon says, but they have to be considered part of hekdish. Why? Because they derive their nourishment from hekdish, from something holy. And if you derive your nourishment from something holy, that makes you holy. Which I will say, something so beautiful in life. Which means, even if I'm not holy, because sometimes in life I'm not holy, If I derive nourishment from holiness, then that by definition makes me holy. So if I open up my Gemara and I learn Torah, or I go ahead and I give tzedakah, or I do acts of chesed, so in other words, I engage in actions of kiddusha. If you gain sustenance from hekdesh, you become kaddish, even if inherently, in the state in which you are, you're not hekdesh. In other words, the sycamore tree, the carob tree, inherently are not hekdesh. They're separate. But because they're deriving their nutrients, their nourishment, their yanika from hekdesh land, they become, it's incredible, no? We're always trying to figure out, how do we make ourselves kaddish? Especially sometimes I look inside myself and I really don't feel holy. I really don't feel holy. As a result of a number of different wrong turns in life and different things that I've done or have done, I really don't feel holy. So how do I turn that around? And the answer is derive nourishment from a source of holiness and you become holy. Tap into something holy and derive nourishment from it, and by definition, de facto, you become kaddish. Incredible, incredible. So the Gemara says, okay, so now let's get back to this. Now let's analyze this. Now let's say, so now, what did we just say before? Okay, so let's try to piece this all together. What we just said before was, okay, let's go back. I go ahead and I sell, or I should say, I sell a field to Ruvain, and I withhold. I keep 2 trees for myself. What's the halacha? What did Rav Huna say about that? What's the halacha? The halacha is I retain the land underneath the trees. Why? Right? And even Rabbi Aviva, even according to Rabbi Aviva, who says Mocher ba'ayin yafe mocher, agrees that I keep the land under the trees. Why? Let's go through this. What was the logic? Because if I don't retain the land, then Ruvain has every right to tell me, uproot your trees. Your trees are sapping nutrients from my land, uproot your trees. So in other words, in order for me to retain trees, I also have to retain the land. Okay, so that's a principle that Rav Huna is espousing. Fine. Now the Gemara says, well, let's contrast that with our Mishnah. I'm makdish my field. Now, Reb Shimon says, under normal circumstances, when you're makdish your field, hekdish is treated like mecher, like a sale. Therefore, what should be excluded? The carob and the sycamore trees. Yet, Reb Shimon says, but they have to be included. Why do they have to be included? Because they're deriving nutrients from a field of hekdish. Whoa, what's that mean? If a sycamore tree and a carob tree were to be excluded from the hekdish, according to what we just said before, what would come along with the carob and sycamore trees? What would come along with them? The earth underneath it. If that's the case, then the carob and sycamore trees are not deriving nutrients from a field of hekdish. Rather, what are they deriving nutrients from? From my field. In other words, we'll say, if we accept the premise that halacha l'maisa, right, trees come with earth, that means if sycamore and carob trees are not normally included in a transaction, then by definition, the earth underneath them is not included as well. If that's the case, then halacha l'maisa, there is no concern that halacha l'maisa would go ahead, that those trees are in any way deriving nutrients from a hektish field. If that's the case, then why does Rabbi Shimon include them? Again, just complete circle. To which the Gemara says, here we go. Here we go. If you hold, like Rav Huna said before, that when you retain trees for yourself, retention of trees comes with the earth underneath the trees. Ki kayanki midinafshe kayanki. Ultimately, again, when the trees derive nutrients, right? What are they deriving nutrients from? They're deriving nutrients from your own land. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Shimon da'amar Rabbi Akiva. So it must be that halacha l'maisa Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva. So therefore, we'll say what we're saying is like this. So it's fascinating over here. It must be that Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah, right? So Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah who says that the carob and sycamore trees are included in the hektish, must hold like Rabbi Akiva. What does Rabbi Akiva say? Rabbi Akiva says, Mocher ba'ayin yafe mocher. Mocher ba'ayin yafa mocher. And therefore, again, he holds that hektish is like a mechira, like a sale. And the same way that when you sell everything. So too when you makdish everything. Including what? Include the land underneath the trees, and including the sycamore, right, and carob trees. Including the sycamore and carob trees. Now, what's interesting about this is as follows, is that halacha l'maisa, interestingly enough, Rav Huna said before that even according to Rabbi Akiva, you would retain land. So okay, we'll have to work this through. This will come out a little bit more in tomorrow's daf. But Rabbi Shimon must be holding like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, first of all, look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Akiva, Rabbo democher ba'ayin yafe mocher. Ultimately, again, he holds that halacha l'maisa, that a seller sells ba'ayin yafa. And therefore, again, hektish is like a sale. Therefore, all of this is done with incredible generosity. And therefore, halacha l'maisa, everything is included, including the land underneath the trees. And therefore, halacha l'maisa, it turns out that the sycamore and the carob trees are in fact deriving their nutrients from a field of hektish. So whereas Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Akiva, for Rav Huna the Amar Kirabanan. And ultimately, again, and Rav Huna holds like the Rabbanan. Now, I will say, now remember, Rav Huna was one who we had in Amar Aleph. What does that mean, Rav Huna holds like the Rabbanan? So the Gemara says, Pshita. The Gemara says, Kirabanan Pshita. Look at the Rashbam. It's all the way towards the bottom of that. Kirabanan Pshita. Techevan de ba'ayin ra'a mocher, va'od de matzi lokech l'meimar le'akar ilanach shakol v'zil, mishud nemachish riba'ara, kavachomer hu legabi bar v'dus, tomachash riba'ara, v'afilach em Rabbanan, the shayir derech li'atzmo leboro. So we'll say, so Rabbi Shimon holds like the Rabbanan, which, again, makes sense, because Rabbi Shimon holds that, therefore, again, when you sell two trees, right, Rabbanan hold mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher, and therefore Rabbi Shimon holds that when you sell two trees, by definition, I'm withholding, or I should say, when I sell the land and withhold two trees for myself, what I'm doing is withholding the land underneath those trees as well. To which the Gemara says, K'ra'banan pshita, so that's obvious. To which the Gemara says, I will say, no, I'll tell you why it matters. Nafkamina, di nafli hadar shasli luhu. So I'll say, I'll tell you where this makes a difference. And this is actually quite interesting. What it means is as follows. Let's say, we'll say in this case over here, I go ahead and I sell my field to Ruvain, but I withhold two trees for myself. So Rav Huna, Paskin is like the Rabbanon, meaning what? Mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher, and therefore the assumption is that I'm withholding the land underneath the trees for myself. Now the Gemara says, okay, so what's the chiddush over here? Here's the chiddush. Let's say, what happens if my trees die? Then what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, I have the ability, if I want, to go ahead and replant new trees. In other words, according to what Rav Huna is saying, is that the retention of the land underneath the trees is not simply to service the trees that are currently there, but rather what? It's my land forever. That even if, should the current trees die, I maintain the ability to go in and replant something new there. Take a look at the last Rashbam on the daf. Nafkamina, had Rav Huna, the asal hashmina liba d'Rabbanan, the shir karka la'atzmo. As Rabbi say, see, here's what's interesting. If this was just simply an idea of mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher, let's say that was this idea over here, mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher. So what does that mean? I sell my field to Ruvain, I withhold two trees for myself. So what am I holding back for myself? The area underneath the trees. But what that would mean on a simple level is, what am I holding? That as long as those trees are there, I own the land underneath it. What happens if the trees die? I don't know, I can make the argument that then maybe even if you hold mocher ba'ayin ra, maybe that land goes to Ruvain. Kamash malon, Rav Huna comes along and says, no. When you go ahead and you retain two trees for yourself, mocher ba'ayin ra, you retain the land underneath the trees. What does it mean you retain land underneath the trees? That land is permanently yours. So even if the current trees die, halacha l'maisa, again, what? Halacha l'maisa, you have the ability to plant something new. So therefore I will say, it turns out over here, that the machlokes Rabbi Shimon and Rav Huna is the same machlokes Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbanan. Rav Huna is holding again like the Rabbanan, mocher ba'ayin ra'a mocher, and therefore when I sell a field but retain two trees for myself, I hold on to the land underneath the trees, but not only hold on to it to service the current trees. Even if the current trees die, I have the ability to go ahead and plant new trees. That's number one, right? But Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Akiva, that mocher ba'ayin yafa mocher, and therefore again, hektish is like a mechira. Therefore, when I makdish a field, I makdish everything, even the area underneath the trees, and therefore even the sycamore and carob trees are yonik. They derive sustenance from from hektish field, and therefore halacha l'maisa they are included in the hektish as well. Okay, so we'll say so the resolution of this machlok, yes, and the halacha l'maisa we'll have to. I'll just mention just in ending off last moment that we have together is it's incredible. It's incredible if you think about it that we are learning over here at Gemara all about sada on Rosh Chodesh Elul. The Bava Tanya writes that the essence of Chodesh Elul, is Hamelech Basada, that the king is in the field. The king is in the field. What does this mean? So the Bava Tanya writes, he says, Tishrei, Yomim Noraim, is all about Malchus. It's Ribbon Shalom as king, right? We go from Hakel HaKadosh to Hamelech HaKadosh. Everything is about the Ribbon Shalom as a king. Well, the king generally, again, when you approach the king is in his palace. That's why even Shachris on Yomim Noraim, right? How do we start Shachris? Right? So the Chazan is sitting in his seat. And he says, Hamelech sitting in his seat. Why is that so strange? He doesn't go to the Amid and say Hamelech over there. Because again, there's a certain awe and reverence when approaching the king. When the king is the king and you have to approach him on his throne, you do so with a sense of humility, a sense of awe and reverence, because the king is the king and he wants to talk to us, but he's in his palace and there's a certain level of reverential behavior that you need. The Balatanya writes that Elul is different. And Elul, the king is not in the palace. So where is the king if the king is not in the palace? The king is in the sada. The king is in the field. And when the king is in the field, everyone has access to him. When the king is in the palace, you need some protexia. You need to know someone. You need to know someone who can get you in. You need to know how to get in. You need to know what to say, how to say it, how to this, how to that. When the king is in the field, anyone and everyone can run up to him. Says the Balatanya, the power of Chodesh Elul is unparalleled access to the Ribono Shel Olam. He's the Melech, but he's the Melech Basada. He's the king in the field. When the king is in the field, he doesn't have the same entourage, right? There's not the same level, there's not the same barriers of entry. When the king is in the field, anyone and everyone, from the greatest tzaddik to the simplest of Jews, has the ability to ultimately access the Melech. And I will say that is the power of Chodesh. And how incredible is it that on Rosh Chodesh Elul, what's our entire daf about? The Sada. It's all about what's included in the field. On Rosh Chodesh Elul, when we celebrate, Melech is Basada, the king is in the field. Go to him, run to him, grab him, access him, hug him, kiss him, reignite the relationship with him. The Gemara gives us a beautiful gift of talking about all of the halachos of a Sada, to remind us that the Melech has Basad Rabbi said we should be Zoch and Eretz Hashem to make this Chodesh Elul. How badly we need this Elul. How badly Klal Yisrael needs this Elul. How badly we need this Elul. How much we need to go ahead and reignite our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How much we need to go ahead and kind of, we're almost a year into this war. And the truth is, unfortunately, there's almost like a little bit of apathy that sets in. This has become our norm. This has become, right, we can speak about hostages without welling up with emotion because it's become our norm. We could speak about victims of war, victims of terror, because unfortunately it's become our norm. Sometimes when things become your norm, you don't necessarily feel the same level of compulsion to act and to do. Elul is the time to shake off the norm. Elul is the time to reignite the spark. Elul is the time to recognize that the Ribono Shel Olam is accessible to us like never before. Let's run to greet him. Let's maximize the month. Let's do what we need to do to get ready for the Yom Norah, because Rabbi say, what we need more than anything this Rosh Hashanah is we need a favorable din. The Ribono Shel Olam, there were some pretty significant decrees that were made upon Klal Yisrael last Rosh Hashanah. Some overwhelming judgments that the Ribono Shel Olam set down last Rosh Hashanah. We need a different set of judgments this Rosh Hashanah. We need something different. We demand something different for this year. This has to be a year of Besaros Tovos. This has to be a year of Mazel, of Bracha. This has to be a year of Simcha. This has to be a year of Shalom. It has to be a year of Pidyon Shvuyim. We need that from the Ribono Shel Olam. Well, right now the Melech is Basada. And if we run to him, reignite our relationship with him, redouble our spiritual efforts, then there is no telling what we can secure for the year ahead. So Rabbi say, welcome to the Sada, welcome to the field. It's a great zichus to be in this beautiful field together with all of you. We should each be zocha as individuals and as a collective to find the Melech, to find the King. And when we find him, don't let him go. Don't let him go. A guten chodesh, a ksiva chasima tova, and a shkoyach for the month ahead. Same